What's good, you guys? Farzine Vasugian here with you on a Red Friday, and not just any ordinary Red Friday. It is 816 Day. Happy 816 Day to all of you celebrating out there. It is the Red Friday live chat. I'm Farzine Vasugian. Thank you guys for joining me. We've been doing a lot of live streams lately, but I'm not complaining. I don't see any of you guys complaining. In fact, I think I see a lot of you guys taking in a lot of these live streams, enjoying them for what they are, and definitely having a good time with them. Obviously, we did the Chiefs Own podcast on Wednesday. Had some things to discuss on there. Was not a very newsworthy edition of the Chiefs Own podcast, but still had some things to go over. Talked about the 65-year anniversary of the Kansas City Chiefs, and also talked about Arrowhead Stadium being 52 years old. So had some fun with those discussions there. And then also on Thursday's podcast last night, just about 22 hours ago to be exact, we had former Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Brody Croyle on the podcast. Brody was awesome. I had a really good time. And by the way, I appreciate all of the comments on that. I'm not going to lie, I was a little nervous because let me just first off say I was very excited to have Brody on. That was a good conversation. We can kind of dive into that and respond to some of the thoughts on that a little later on. Some things to talk about here on this episode of the Red Friday live chat. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the second Chiefs preseason game. In fact, I need to go and get the updated depth chart. Again, not really anything too crazy on the depth chart right now, but we can still go over it, kind of go over some of the updates and see who is where and who maybe needs to have a better preseason game for the Chiefs this Saturday, tomorrow. Give or take 24 hours, the game tomorrow will come to an end, and we'll talk about that. Speaking of tomorrow's game, an hour before the game, 2 o'clock Central Time, we will do a pregame live chat. So join me for that on here on Facebook and on YouTube, and then we'll do a halftime live stream, talk about what we saw in the first half, keeping it very short, of course, and then after the game, we will do the Chiefs Zone podcast live, recapping preseason game number 2 against the Detroit Lions. I don't anticipate this to be a very long Red Friday live chat. I know I'm doing this a little earlier than I anticipated, or at least announced. So I do apologize for doing this much sooner. So if you guys have a question, comment, whatever's on your mind, let me know. I see a couple comments already. I'll get to those later on, and definitely want to weigh in and give you guys some of the thoughts I've got right now going on. Let me just get the Chiefs updated depth chart. Not that the depth chart means a whole lot, but it is something to kind of go off right now. Let me just see if there's an update. Oh, well, I thought I saw an updated depth chart, but we can just use the one from ourlads.com. Man, there are a lot of bad websites out there now. Listen, I'm not going to say names, but some of these websites that just speculate right off the bat, they've got a massive following, and they use that to their advantage to create speculation and drive rumors that don't ever need to be driven whatsoever. But hey, I mean, they've got the power to do so. So more power to those websites. But nonetheless, I do want to get into the stadium conversation because that's a little bit of a hot topic news. We didn't really spend a lot of time on that on Wednesday's podcast. Probably should have. But we got word, and it was reported that the Kansas City Royals are looking to build. Apparently, construction has already begun near the area where kind of where the Western Auto Sign is, somewhat adjacent to the area where Union Station is. What does that mean? What do we take from that? It sounds like, because a lot of the focus recently has been more so on the Chiefs and what they're going to do. The Royals have been very quiet. It's interesting because prior to that failed vote on April the 2nd or whatever that was, we heard a lot of noise from the Royals about what they wanted to do this big plan of theirs. First, they thought it was going to be in the River Market area. Then they kind of changed their plans and what they wanted. Then they went downtown and they said, "Hey, look, this is what we really want. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to look beautiful. We're just not going to tell you all the logistics of it, but we want you to vote yes." And then the Chiefs revealed their renovation plans, and in kind of a surprise move, they decided to join forces with the um with the Royals, and that was kind of an odd combination there. Okay, maybe odd's not the right word, but you've got the Royals who actually want to leave the Truman Sports Complex. Meanwhile, the Chiefs want to stay at the Truman Sports Complex. So they had a little joint campaign there, which did not make sense in the fact that, one is leaving the Truman Sports Complex and the other isn't. So if you wanted the Chiefs to get their renovations, but you did not want the Royals to move downtown or vice versa, you kind of have to make a weird decision if you were a Jackson County voter. But when you look at everything that transpired, I mean, the vote was not even close. It was bad. And not that the Chiefs would ever, give any idea that their vote might fail, but I think Nate Taylor tweeted this. He asked Clark Hunt, what would you do if the vote were to fail? And he responded saying he doesn't anticipate that, but later found out it failed. And I think it was Mark Donovan who caught a lot of heat because it sounded like he was threatening the voters. And so the Chiefs have to come out and maybe provide some clarity and say, no, this is not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to threaten people into voting a certain way. But if you guys vote no, we have to explore other options. And then what did the Chiefs and the Royals do 2 weeks before the vote? They started making promises that if you vote yes, we're going to help out with housing and all kinds of economic contributions to Jackson County. And I'm like, wait a minute, why was this not said sooner? Now, say what you want to say about Casey Tenants. There was some misinformation that was out there, and the Chiefs felt the need to clear some things up that they were putting out there. Fine, we got no problem with providing clarity, making sure voters know what they're voting about. But starting to make promises 2 weeks before the vote to get people to say yes, I mean, what was the purpose of that? I didn't really understand what the purpose was there. Why make promises 2 weeks before? Because to me, it sounded like the Chiefs and the Royals knew they were in trouble. That's what it sounded like. So obviously they're not going their separate ways. And we've heard far more things about the Chiefs than we have the Royals. Obviously the Chiefs right now are a hot ticket item. They won 3 Super Bowls in the past 5 years. They have an opportunity to go and win 3 in a row, which has never been done before. They have the best player on the planet. And obviously, Travis Kelce being the biggest superstar in the world right now because of his relationship with Taylor Swift. I mean, everyone wants a piece of the Chiefs. So it's kind of obvious right now, even though the Royals are, playing better baseball right now than they have in recent memory, at least after the 2015, 2016 seasons. This is just, the Chiefs team is obviously just way ahead of the Royals right now. So it makes sense as to why the Chiefs are, being talked about far more than the Royals. But it sounds like the Royals have done something, but we're not hearing any confirmation. Mayor Quentin Lucas was on KCMO radio yesterday and was talking about how he's had more productive conversations with the Royals than the Chiefs. He did make it very clear that he has been communicating with the Chiefs. And he said that by the holiday season, so, by Christmas, essentially, that he's hoping that there's going to be a deal, some sort of a deal at the very least that's signed, and that the Chiefs will stay in Kansas City, Missouri. Did not specify if they're going to stay at where Arrowhead Stadium is right now at the Truman Sports Complex. Listen, here's my thing. And, I'm sure I'm going to get some pushback here, but here's my hot take, and I would love your guys' response to this. I do think the Chiefs need to leave Arrowhead Stadium. Not because I hate Arrowhead, not because I think it's garbage or anything like that. In terms of the stadium itself, it is old. I mean, there's nothing spectacular about it today, especially when you consider all of the newer and modern looking stadiums. The environment is awesome. The stadium and the environment are two different things here. The reason Arrowhead is still iconic today, obviously, it's a classic older stadium. I believe it's the third oldest stadium in the NFL. But because of the environment, the college environment is. Brody Croyle was on the podcast last night and was talking about that same thing, how it is a college environment. So that kind of thing, you gotta realize it's very old though, and look at what all of these other cities are doing economically when they bring in a Super Bowl, when they bring in a Final Four, when they bring in other major events that prefer to go to only indoor big venues, like Allegiant Stadium just recently hosting the Super Bowl, and I'm sure they'll get many other events. SoFi Stadium also hosted a Super Bowl not too long ago. I know the Minnesota Vikings and their stadium, they had a Super Bowl. I think it was the last Patriots Super Bowl, the one between the Patriots and the Rams. So you want to, if you're going to spend any money on any kind of anything involving you're trying to upgrade your stadium, whether it's through renovations or just upgrading to a whole new stadium, I just think it needs to be done right. That's what needs to happen more than anything else. And I understand, like I've said this many times before, if you're going to get a brand new stadium and if it's going to be in a dome, you lose the flyover unless you have a retractable roof, or if you have a see-through roof. Now, a see-through roof, if it's clear, I don't know if it's going to be the same. Not being able to hear those jets flying over Arrowhead Stadium, the flyover, but so something might need to go. I don't know. My whole thing with the Chiefs is just do it right, because if you're going to spend $800 million on renovations, and by the way, the renovation plan was not very good. I'm just being honest, not trying to do that as a slide or anything to the franchise. As Chiefs fans, none of us want to do that kind of thing. But for the importance of honesty here, what were you upgrading? The video boards? What's wrong with the video boards? I mean, nothing's wrong with the video board, in my opinion. I think the video board's great. I think the audio system could definitely be much better. I think it's honestly quite terrible, if we're being completely honest. And then they want to do kind of what Allegiant Stadium does, have like those nightclub-looking tables in some parts of the stadium, which I think is absolutely dumb. Listen, the drum deck, it's cool. I like it. What I don't like is that they had to remove some seats to make that happen. And if you're going to do kind of what Allegiant Stadium does, then you're going to have to remove more seats. And that I'm just not a big fan of. Would they get more money in the long run? Yeah, sure, because that's going to be a very pricey area, and they're going to jack up the prices for drinks, shots, all that good stuff. So, it's a business. I get it. But that's kind of what they want to do, I guess. That's what they want to do, at least in the renovation plans. So, right now, here's my thing. I think Clark Hunt loves the idea of what Kansas is proposing. Kansas essentially wants to give him his own stadium. Sorry, I just saw some breaking news. Sounds like 49ers and Brandon Ayuk. There have been all kinds of rumors with that one, but it sounds like he's going to stay in San Francisco. Then again, we've heard so many other things in the last 2 weeks, so we don't know what's really going to happen. But it is time. I think it is time to upgrade. Now, I'm not proposing stay in Missouri or go for Kansas. I think a new stadium is the right call. More than a third of the NFL stadiums today are now indoors, and you're seeing the NFL go to a lot of these indoor stadiums for Super Bowls. Obviously, the one in Miami is not indoors, but is in a warm weather climate. By the way, I gotta push back. Raiders fans love pushing back against the Chiefs. Oh, well, at least we host Super Bowls. Comparing winning a Super Bowl to hosting the Super Bowl is not mutually exclusive. Now, I don't expect Raiders fans to know that kind of thing because they're Raiders fans and they have very low IQs in general. But I think you should be proud that your stadium and your team and your city hosted the Super Bowl. It's the closest the Raiders have been to a Super Bowl in 40 years. But it's still something that, the city should be proud of. And I think Vegas hit a home run with the Super Bowl, despite all the complaints about how expensive it was. I still think, that's something they should be proud of. Comparing it to the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl as a flex of some sort is not the flex that you think it is at all. Not one bit. You look at all these other cities. who, in fact, if you guys look, well, you can't really see it here, but I have this quad newspaper from Super Bowl 54, where from the Miami Herald, I think it's Greg Cote wrote in a column saying that the Chiefs, they won the Super Bowl, Mahomes, and also the city of Miami won because they hosted it, generated a lot of money, and it was an exciting Super Bowl. So, cities love when they host these kinds of big events. Maybe the game itself could be boring, but they still generate a lot of money from it. And again, not just the Super Bowl, you get Final Fours and so many other things. I know there's this big battle between Kansas and Missouri, and people from Missouri threatening to never watch the Chiefs ever again, which I think is, by the way, I mean, those are just people just saying things just to say things. Are you really going to not root for the Chiefs if they move 20 minutes maximum away from where they are? Really? I mean, the Raiders moved 8 hours away, and their fan base, I don't think any of them are rooting for another. Seriously, who are you going to root for? The Chiefs. Let's say the Chiefs chose today to leave Missouri for Kansas. They're still going to be in the Kansas City area. Are you really going to change your fandom, your allegiance because of that? I mean, I get it. If you live right by the stadium, okay, I can understand why you would really want them to stay, but to threaten your fandom, like, come on, that's a little silly to me. We'll get into the preseason game tomorrow in a moment. I don't have too much to say. I'm kind of at this point where it's like, listen, I get it. Training camp, preseason games, I'm not here to say they're irrelevant, but as a fan, it's like, okay, I got excited for last week's preseason game. Maybe they do something cool tomorrow that'll definitely excite you. But all these training camp highlights, all these things, I'm like, okay, let's go. I get the point of the movie Click. Don't just rush through life, but I wouldn't mind hitting the fast forward button for the next 20 days so we can get to kickoff. Because it's been a very quick off season. At least it felt like it. And I'm just like, all right, you have all these players, and I know Hollywood's going to miss a little bit of time, but let's just see this new offense. I want to see this new offense in a real game. That's what I want to see. Let's go to your questions. If you guys are joining in late, please comment below. Let me know your thoughts on anything you have on your mind, whether it's the Chiefs Stadium, the preseason game tomorrow, anything else that's on your mind. Let me know, and we will chat it up. Donnie says, I've been wondering if Missouri could take taxes from sports betting for the Chiefs. There is an opportunity to vote on that this week. Or not this week, I'm sorry, this election in November. So if you're in the state of Missouri, you have an opportunity. I'll say this right now, and I know Mayor Quinton Lucas is very adamant about, like, he kind of was giving off these weird vibes. Like, he was not exuding any confidence when talking about the Chiefs staying in Missouri. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, because he does his KCMO appearance once a week, he, out of nowhere, what was it, like a month ago, he was like, the Royals will play downtown and the Chiefs will stay at Arrowhead. With what plan? I mean, we have not heard a lick from Missouri on how they're trying to keep the Chiefs. Kansas is show me the money. Well, Kansas is showing Clark Hunt the money and the stadium. They literally want to gift him the stadium. I enjoyed the pod with Brody. He had great perspective on the problems he had. Wasn't the only one. But yeah, listen, Brody was awesome. Super, super nice guy. I enjoyed having that conversation with Brody. I'll say what I said at the beginning of the live stream in case any of you guys came in late and missed it. I appreciate all the comments from that. I was a little nervous doing that, not doing the podcast, but announcing it, because I thought it was going to get a lot of pushback. Hey, why are you interviewing a guy who was 0-10 as a starter? But no, I think a lot of people were actually very interested in hearing from him and hearing why things did not work as advertised. And he was very open and honest, gave great perspective, did not, hold anything back, wasn't shy about his feelings and how rough things were. He opened up about all of that, which kind of makes you feel bad, because I was one of those heavy critics about Brody and the rest of that team. And I do agree with you, by the way. Like, he was not the only one to blame for it. That team was just bad. Could he maybe have excelled in another situation elsewhere? Maybe. We, in an alternate universe, maybe we can find out about that, but that's not the way things work here, unfortunately. but he said he had no regrets, and I thought that was awesome. If you guys did not have a chance to listen to that, please check it out. It was on last night's podcast. It's available on Apple and Spotify, also on YouTube and Facebook. So go check that out. A lot of great perspective from Brody Croyle on why things did not work out, and also what he's doing today, helping out kids, managing around 200 kids, giving them a second chance, which is absolutely awesome. Anytime someone's helping out kids, it's always good in my book, and I think a lot of people would agree with that as well. Take the Chiefs out of Arrowhead, they won't be the Chiefs, and their fan base will go way down. They move to Arrowhead to get out of downtown and everything built up around them. It will happen no matter where they move to. Why would the fan base go way down, Rick? People say these things, and Rick, you're not the only one, so I'm not picking on you, but people say these things. People say, "Oh, everything's going to change." Why? Because people from Missouri don't want to see them move across the state line. By the way, can we discuss this for a moment? Why is this Kansas Missouri thing so personal to people? It's just you're in the same country. You're in the United States of America. If the Chiefs went to San Antonio, yeah, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, why leave the area? But dude, you're leaving, you're going, just across the state line if they do. And again, I don't care where they go. I've said this many times. I don't give a rat's ass. I've heard people say, "Oh, it's because you want them to go." I don't want them to go to Kansas. I want them to do what's right, what's best. That's what I want for this team and for their new home. If they do get a new home, I want them to do it right. I don't want them to spend money on pointless renovations, if I'm being completely honest. And I've gone over that in nausea many times. But I hear all these things about, how the team won't be the same and the fans won't be the same. And I'm like, why? People did this when the Chiefs left 101 the Fox. Their contract with Cumulus was up, so they went to Entercom, which is now called Odyssey. People were saying, "Oh, it's not going to be the same." Why is it not going to be the same? It's just going to be on a different station, and the call letters and numbers are going to be different. That's it. I mean, the commercials might be a little different. The promos might be a little different, but it's still the same guy announcing the game. It's still Mitch Holtis announcing the games. What else is really drastically different? The Chiefs are a lot more loved than the Royals in KC I certainly agree with that. No question about it. I know there was a very short period in 2015 and 2014 when it was the Royals generating all the headlines way over the Chiefs. Those were the only 2 years you would ever see. Okay, and maybe 1985 because the Chiefs were just bad in the 80s. But, you haven't seen the Royals really take that much attention away from the Chiefs in general. When the Royals, after that 2015 World Series, unfortunately, they got worse and worse after that, and that World Series hangover faded real fast. So obviously, the Royals they made strides this year to be better. So we'll see if they can kind of get that aura back. Chiefs organization stands on tradition, and that's why I love the Chiefs. Clark Hunt, Lamar Hunt moved them to Kansas City, Missouri, and that's where they need to stay. I have no problems with them staying in Kansas City, Missouri. Just do it right. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, but Green Bay's goal is not the same as the Chiefs. Old, give me a break. Fenway in Boston or Wrigley in Chicago are older, so don't give me old. Yeah, but what does Fenway? What do Fenway and Wrigley have to do with Arrowhead, though? I mean, is Fenway hosting the Super Bowl? Wrigley hosting the Super Bowl? Are they hosting major events? Like, I don't know why we're comparing those two. They're not mutually exclusive. Yeah, that's my thing. Like, if they do get a dome, again, I don't care where, Kansas or Missouri, I hope that they can get a retractable roof. Hunt family, I'm sure, has the money for it. But I'm sure they also want to get the citizens involved as well. Moving the Chiefs to KC would be horrible. Why? Why, Donnie? Again, like I don't care at all where they go. I just want them to do it right. Kansas has proposed a good plan. I don't see anything terrible about that plan so far. But why would that be horrible, though? New stadium, retractable roof, Final Four coming, maybe WrestleMania. Yeah, WrestleMania would definitely be cool. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who would love to go, whether they're wrestling fans or not, just to kind of check out the venue at a place like that. Clark Hunt wants a new stadium. Let him pay for it, not the taxpayers. Well, Rick, I don't think anyone disagrees with you. I certainly agree with you as well, but you're not going to get a lot of. I mean, that's just not the way things work. A Raiders fan IQ, LOL. Yeah, I'm just being honest. Oh, there goes my print. I just printed something there. Kansas City can have the Final Four at T-Mobile Center. I mean, maybe like they actually had the Final Four at Kemper Arena. Donnie, if you remember that was that was a long time ago. And I'll just say now, times have changed. When was the last time the Final Four was in an arena the size of Kemper Arena or the T-Mobile Center? When was the last time you saw WrestleMania in an arena that size? I mean, they don't do them in arenas anymore. They do them in big venues now, which I get. Times have changed. Things are bigger. Advertising, social media, all that stuff can certainly attract more attention. TV contract as well. So yeah, you definitely want to take advantage and get bigger turnouts for these events. I've been at several road stadiums, and it's not the same. Yes, it's nice, but it takes away everything. The open dome is special, and they shouldn't change it. There is a ginormous difference. I hope they stay. If not, I will still be a diehard. Yeah, listen, I get it. Like, look, I'm not dismissing any of the, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess the nostalgia, just the emotional connection that all of us have. I've said this many times before. I still remember all those times. My parents took my brother and I to Kauffman Stadium, to Arrowhead Stadium, and to think that maybe in 2031, no one's going to step foot in that Truman Sports Complex area ever again, maybe at least for a sporting event. Maybe they'll do something with that area, but no one's going to go there for a sporting event, maybe possibly in 2031. And that is weird to think about, because in my lifetime and a lot of other people's lifetimes, that's been the location where a lot of people go to watch Royals baseball and Chiefs football. So, yeah, I mean, it would be weird to think about. And even Clark Hunt kind of addressed that too. And I know Clark Hunt's talked about tradition, and Lamar Hunt said that his favorite place in the world is Arrowhead Stadium. But again, times have changed. Listen, I don't want to speak for people who are no longer with us. I don't know what Lamar Hunt would think. Let me just say this. Lamar Hunt, he was in favor of AFC championship games and NFC championship games being played on a neutral playing site. Do you think Lamar Hunt would have that opinion today? I don't know. But given how successful the Chiefs have been, and they've hosted 5 in a row at Arrowhead, I don't think Lamar would. I think Lamar would definitely change his opinion on that. Why wouldn't you? A lot of people might push back and say, well, his team's being successful, that's why he would change his opinion. Yeah, I would too. I mean, who wouldn't? Sometimes circumstances change, and you see certain things, and maybe you realize, hey, home field advantage for these kinds of things would be nice. I guess it's easier to say that because in all the years Lamar Hunt was the owner of the franchise, the Chiefs never hosted an AFC title game. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely can change your perspective. So my point is, I don't know what Lamar Hunt would think today. Would he think that in 2024 that it would be time to move on and seriously consider a dome elsewhere, whether it's in Missouri or Kansas? I don't know. I'd like to think that's something that he would at least think about and have conversations about. Because I know Clark Hunt's been big on trying to honor what his dad loved. But again, this is no longer Lamar's team. This is Clark Hunt's team. There's a reason why it was handed down to him. You hand it down because you trust that he's going to take care of that baby. And if times change, he trusts you to change with the times and do what you got to do. You're happy because you live in Kansas. What does that mean, David? I've made it very clear. I don't give a rat's ass where they go. I just want them to stay in Kansas City. Because I think when that Dallas mayor spoke up and was like, yeah, let's bring a team. Let's have 2 teams in Dallas. Well, technically, you'd only have one. But again, I've said many times, I don't care. I don't want them to leave the Kansas City area. I would want them to be in kind of a suitable area. I don't want them to just go in downtown Kansas City where there would be a lot of complaints about parking and traffic. I do think that that's a terrible idea. I don't know how they would logistically make that work. I think that's why the Royals have been facing a lot of backlash. I mean, listen, if the Royals were so confident about their Crossroads plan, why are they now going even more south? I think they realized what the voters were trying to tell them, and they could not provide any logistical explanations. Again, like David, you're bringing up, David, that I live in Kansas, which has nothing to do with anything. I've always said I don't care where they go. I just want them to stay in the area. Elena gonna cheer for them no matter where they go from Canada. Neighbor to the north. Arrowhead was made so a dome could be put on a lot cheaper than a new stadium. Wait, hold on. What? Arrowhead was made so a dome could be put on a lot cheaper than a new stadium. I think you mean, or I don't know what that means. I can't wait till these fate out of the woodwork Chiefs fans disappear. Go back to normal. Well, if that happens, I don't think the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be as good then, Donnie. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of new Chiefs fans right now, but I don't know. What do you think the percent chance is of us getting CD Lamb? 0. Here's why. And I assume you mean CD Lamb, Chris. You have to worry about keeping Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. The Chiefs do not have the Chiefs don't have a very they're not very flexible with the salary cap right now. It's rough right now, even in the future. So you got to worry about keeping your offensive line. If you trade for CD Lamb today, obviously you're going to give up a lot to get him. So if you're going to give up a lot to get him, then you're going to need to give him a new contract right away because that's what he wants is a new deal. And that's not very easy to do right now for Kansas City. They just made Chris Jones the highest paid tackle in history. They just made Butker the highest paid kicker in history. I know, the kicker position isn't as much, but given, the tight salary cap the Chiefs are dealing with right now, that kind of does add up. Travis Kelce just got a raise. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are both going to want to hit the bank very soon. Trey Smith is going to be very difficult to keep. The guard market just went up this offseason. And again, keep in mind, Trey Smith was a 6th-round pick, so that's not someone who's making a lot of money right now. So he's going to want that big, fat check next offseason, 100%. Can't wait to see our action with that speed. Yeah, I'm stoked, Jamie. I want the games, man, right now. Give me that September 5th game. I want to see what that's going to look like against a good defense in a couple of weeks. Who is your pro wrestling Mount Rushmore? Make it good. Oh, geez. You're asking the wrong guy, man. I'm not very familiar a whole lot with wrestling pre, 97, 98. I've gone back and watched some of the 97 and 98 Raws. But man, I still don't have a good grasp on that kind of thing. I mean, if you want my stance on from 97 to today, with the exception of a few years where I did not watch wrestling, I mean, The Rock has to be up there. I mean, the guy was the staple guy for the WWE for a long time. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret Hart, 100%. So there's 3. I got to give you one more. John Cena. So, in my era of being familiar with wrestling, those are the 4 I have to. I know, Ricky Steamboat, Hulk Hogan. I'm not really as familiar with those guys in their prime. When do teams drop to 53? It's a couple days after the last preseason game. Let me pull that date up for you. I had that date the other day. Yeah, 53-man deadline is, drum roll please, August 27th, 4 p.m. Eastern time. So 3 o'clock Central time. There you go. And now we're getting political in the comments. Great. Dorothy says, let them go to Kansas. Who cares? Okay. There's one There's one perspective there. Missouri keeps the Chiefs. The Royals, Kansas. Okay, all right. Is anyone ever been to the state of Kansas? It's a crap hole. I don't understand comments like this, like people shaming and attacking other states in the United States. Seriously, like, do people in third world countries shame like other regions, states, or territories? Like, do people in Canada, like, do people in Montreal shame the people of Toronto? Like, I don't get why this is such a big thing in the United States. Why do people love to attack other states in their own country? Dude, I've never understood that. I have never understood that at all. Did you see how many fans were down here in Jacksonville? Yes, I did. That there were a lot of Chiefs fans there, Jamie. I agree. That was awesome to see, even for a preseason game. Like, that was pretty cool. They will build a new stadium in 30 years in Missouri. Maybe. What's your favorite Chiefs uniform combo? Red on red. Wish they would update uniform or have an alternate jersey. You know, it's actually funny you asked this because I was just having this conversation today with my brother. I do not like the red jerseys and the white pants, or the white jerseys and red pants. I think that's a terrible combination. When they wear full red and full white, I love it. It looks awesome. But the red and the white on red, yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I love the color red. It's my favorite color, not just because of the Chiefs. It's funny, when I was a kid, I loved the Power Rangers, and I always like loved the Red Ranger. That's what I was every year as a kid for Halloween. So I was just like attracted to the color red, and then obviously because of the Chiefs. So, yeah, funny enough, my favorite colors are red and then black and silver. Probably should not have admitted that, but that's okay. But yeah, I love the red on red. I'm with you. I know a lot of Chiefs fans don't like it because apparently we don't have a great record when we wear red on red. Okay, all right. Still sucks that 101 The Fox isn't the Chiefs radio. Yeah, but I mean, it's still the same thing, though. It's like it's cool. Like, the announcer is the same guy. They're just on a different station, and the promos might sound a little different. Rick likes the white jersey with the red pants. Okay, I got you. If the Royals left, who cares? If the Chiefs left, people would be crying. If you told me this, Chris, about 14 years ago, like 14, 15 years ago, you probably would be right. I mean, you guys all saw the attendance for Royals games in 08, 09, 2010. Hell, even last year, Royals attendance was really bad. Outside, like, again, in my lifetime, the only time the Royals have been good, 2003. That was like considered the golden year of Royals baseball, even though they didn't make the playoffs, because that was like the only year they were above 500. And then they've had a couple of other moments. 2013 was a decent year, better than most years, unfortunately. Then 2014, 2015, obviously. 2016, no playoff appearance, but still they were pretty competitive. And I would say this year they're obviously doing pretty well. So hopefully we have more of those with the Royals. But yeah, I mean, if you told me that, Chris, 14 years ago, I think you would be right. I don't know if a lot of people would care if the Royals would leave. Look at the Oakland Athletics. They're leaving, and their fans didn't care for a long time. Then some of their fans started to show up to protest the possible departure. But are they still making a big deal about it now? No, because Oakland's been terrible for a long time in baseball. Raiders looks like a black toilet. I think it looks cool, honestly. I really do. I like it. And I've been there a few times. It's great. Would love to go back again, especially since a lot of Chiefs fans make that trip. But I don't know. If you guys haven't had a chance to go, definitely plan on it. It's awesome. Rather play in the elements, a dome or a roof would take away from that. Yeah, I mean, I have no problems with playing in the elements. It's funny because Mike McDaniel was on the Pat McAfee show and was talking, but basically was making excuses about how they lost. The reason they lost in the playoff game was because of the weather. Really? The weather? Wasn't that Week 18 Sunday Night Football game between Buffalo and Miami in? Wasn't that in Miami? I could be wrong, but I think it was in Miami. You know, just to make sure I'm correct. Miami 2023 NFL schedule. I just want to be accurate before I move on with what I'm about to say. Because you know we've heard Dolphins fans kind of make excuses about the playoff loss to the Chiefs. Say, yeah, it was in Miami. Okay, it was in Hard Rock Stadium. So you had the Buffalo Bills in your home stadium, and that was essentially kind of like a playoff game. And the fact that you needed to win that game to secure the number 2 seed in the AFC, I believe it was, and you didn't. The week before, you got trampled by Baltimore. And now I get it, it was a road game, but still a team that you could have possibly faced for an AFC championship game. You got demolished by them 56-19. So I don't really know if that's anything to be proud of here, particularly. Let me see. I mean, they went to visit the Jets in late November and beat them 34-13. I don't care what team it was. I mean, that's the cold weather last I checked. So Miami's capable of winning in the cold. They just can't do it against playoff teams. What was their record against playoff teams last year? 1-5, 1-6 if you include the playoff game. So I always think it's interesting when I know that's what your comment was about, but I just have to get that out there. WrestleMania isn't real. Oh boy, have not heard that one before. Come on, Chris, you're better than that. Chris, get a profile picture, man. I'm just giving you a hard time. Chiefs are very nostalgic. They don't need to be in a dome. I mean, why not? Get an NBA team in KC and partner with them instead of the Royals. I would love if the Chiefs got or Kansas City got an NBA team. I actually would prefer an NHL team over an NBA team, but I'll take either one. I will take either one. Arrowhead has concerts and monster trucks all the time. Well, monster trucks, I mean, the drivers are in their cars. And does Arrowhead pack the house for Monster Jam? I don't know. Concerts, okay, I'll give you that, but still, it's in the sweltering heat. I don't know how ideal that is. I'm sure a lot of people would still rather have those in a better conditions. Let's just say. I don't know how many concerts have been canceled in Arrowhead because they started doing it after the renovations. They started doing concerts again. Because before that, Arrowhead did not have any events. I think they had like a Billy Graham event one time. I don't know how many times a concert at Arrowhead has been canceled or maybe impacted by weather or such as rain, but I think you would still like that in a more comfortable space for sure. All we need is a dome or a retractable roof and stay at Arrowhead. Worth noting, in 05, the Chiefs had a chance to vote on the retractable roof and did turn it down. Play one season, all home games at another field until Arrowhead roof is added and the other renovation is completed. The Hunt put up $1 billion, tax us for $1.6 billion to assist for both the Royals and the Chiefs. The Royals owner puts up $1 billion for a downtown ballpark. Yeah, maybe Dominic, but the owners want your money, unfortunately. Okay, I'm going to read a few more, and then I got to move on and talk about. Man, this stadium conversation is getting a lot of coverage here. The state of Kansas is very nice on the eastern edge. If you go west, it's a real crap hole. Again, I don't get people shaming. I mean, is it exciting? No, but I don't know, man. You know what's funny is like in my 20s, I was like, man, I'd love to live in a place like downtown KC or New York City, that kind of thing. And I think like over the years, the older I've gotten, I'm like, you know, I could actually appreciate a small town and the quietness. Not that it has anything to do with having a stadium, but yeah, I mean, I was dating someone in college who was from Central Kansas, and I went to go visit her hometown, and she showed me the hometown in like 5 minutes. I was like, whoa, looked a little bigger on the map, but no, no, there are a lot of small towns. I get it. Ooh, the Chiefs of Wichita. Yeah. I don't think Wichita would say no. Yeah, I would not say no at all. That'd be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool for sure. Arrowhead Stadium is historic and legendary. Certainly don't disagree. With the new stadium, it might not create that same experience atmosphere as Arrowhead achieves. Yeah, listen, if you go to a dome, unless you build it the same size as Jerry's World, yeah, you're not going to have as many people at your new stadium, possibly, Matthew. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know what like how possible would it be to have a stadium as big as Jerry's World? I mean, listen, we're in 2024. Clark Hunt is one of the wealthier owners in the NFL. I mean, I would like to think he could contribute and help the state of Kansas. If there's a way to kind of make it coincide with the Star Bonds and say, hey, look, let's build a mega dome similar to Dallas, or it doesn't have to be Kansas, it could be Missouri also. I mean, if you're going to do it, why not swing for the fences? Don't half-ass it. Again, that's why I keep saying, I don't care where they go. Let's just do it right. When Arrowhead was made, it was made so a dome could be put on that a lot cheaper than a new stadium. Okay, I get what you're saying, Rick. You're trying to clarify a previous comment that I was a little confused by. So I appreciate your clarification there. Are they front loading the contracts? Yeah, kind of. I haven't looked at every single specific contract, but yeah, I mean the Chiefs next year again, like Jawan Taylor, his contract kind of like the big part of his contract kicks in this year and next year. So that's kind of what makes things very difficult. Chris Jones has a huge deal on his hands right now. So, yeah, I mean, retaining some of these guys are going to be very difficult. What if he comes on told you so contract cheap to play with Hollywood? Yeah, I mean, if CeeDee Lamb, I mean, that wouldn't make sense. But if that's what he says, Chris, hell yeah. Like, who's saying no to that? You're getting another weapon for Patrick Mahomes? Absolutely. Yeah, I think that would definitely. I don't think anyone would say no to that for sure. And listen, I don't even know like what would the asking price be in a trade? Because look at Matthew Judon. He got traded for a third-round pick. Don't you think other teams there has to be at least one team out there that would have been willing to give a second-round pick? I would imagine there's at least one team. Hulk Hogan, yeah, Hogan's. Chris, you were just telling me WrestleMania's fake. But yeah, Hulk Hogan's a legend. Stone Cold, Hulk, yeah, a couple of votes for Hulk. Undertaker's a great one, man. Like his entrance and his attire, like all of that, epic. Man, I was too young for WCW, so I kind of like the tail end of WCW, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. Nitro and Thunder. And then they had the Monday Night Wars, and then they had the WWF versus the Alliance. Can you see an undefeated season along with the three-peat? No. I don't think they can do an undefeated season. Here's why. There are just so many variables that factor into a loss. Sometimes, like, you just have shitty luck in some games. Which, again, nothing wrong if you're the winning team. That's the way things work. But especially now with 17 games, it's just very, very, very difficult to do. And again, look at the last couple of years. The Chiefs lost to the Colts in 2022. They lost to the Bills and Bengals that year, which wasn't like a humiliating loss because those are great teams, or they were in that season at least. And actually, in the same year, 2022, the Chiefs had a few ugly losses, which I know people were using as a reason why the Chiefs would not even go far in the playoffs, which obviously did not age well. Now you look at last year, 2023, who did the Chiefs lose to? They lost to the Raiders. They lost to the Broncos. They lost man, there was another game they lost that they should not have lost. I can't remember it right now. But they had a couple of embarrassing losses. Every year, like, it just happens. You just have a game or two that you should not lose that you do lose. And so it just happens. And here's the other thing too. If the Chiefs entered the postseason 17-0, I'd be a little nervous. I'm not saying I want the Chiefs to lose, but I would prefer they're not undefeated as much as it sounds like I'm self-contradicting myself, which I am, guilty as charged. Because if you go into the season, the playoffs undefeated, then it's like, okay, you haven't had much to learn from. You learn a lot from your losses than you do your wins. The coaches, listen, let me just be very clear on this because I don't think a lot of fans realize this. Just because the team wins doesn't mean the coaches are celebrating with them. I'm telling you right now, whether it's Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, or whoever the worst coach in the NFL is right now, whoever it is in your opinion, even if you're coming off a win, the next day, which is a film study day, the coaches rail the players' asses on things they did wrong, even if they won by 50. Like, coaches are always looking for the small things to correct their players on. That's just what they do. So, still, I would prefer not to be undefeated going into the postseason because that just makes me a little nervous. And I think, there might be some ego and overconfidence with that. I love my Chiefs just as much as you guys, but I don't know. I'd be a little nervous of the overconfidence if I'm being completely honest. Listen, if the Chiefs can prove me wrong and go undefeated all the way, I would be thrilled with that. Yeah, I'm good with that. Roddy Piper. Yeah, I didn't see those guys, Robert, so I can't really comment. I don't know, and I'm not saying those guys were not legends. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I never watched those guys because I may be a bit younger than some people in this chat here. Yeah, see, Harley Race, again, I've heard the name, but I don't really know what he. Ric Flair, I caught the tail end of Ric Flair's career. So obviously not in his prime. But I'm sure a lot of that stuff is available on Peacock. The Kansas Missouri border war goes back to the Civil War. Yeah, that was the Civil War, Chris. And you're not the only one who has said this. But that was back then, man. Who cares about the Civil War when it comes to the stadium? Why do we let that get in the way of sports? Look at our society today when we talk about politics and when athletes bring up politics. What's the biggest complaint? Not that I agree with people's response. People say that athletes should stick to sports because politics divide us and we don't want that interjected in sports. Yet, for whatever reason, with the stadium conversation, we bring up the Civil War. I'm like, why? That has nothing to do with it right now. Barzy, it looks like the Bengals are having trouble with paying their receivers. Okay, this is let's have this conversation for a moment with Jamar Chase specifically because I don't know what's going to happen with T. Higgins, but what is Cincinnati's goal? Listen, I know I take some digs at Cincinnati, but let's have an honest conversation here. No shit talking here. What is Cincinnati's goal? Because they paid a lot of money to Joe Burrow, who has been great for them when he's available, because ever since you gave him that contract, it has not been very good. He has not been available half the season, half the time for you guys. He's been injured. To me, I'm just like, that's a team that can compete. Listen, Bengals fans love to remind everyone that Burrow was 3-0 at one point against Mahomes. So you have the pieces in place to beat the best, but you're not paying the right guys. They obviously overpaid Orlando Brown. There's no question about it. So what is the goal for Cincinnati? Because the guys that you're not paying, they're the ones who are putting butts in seats at Paycor Stadium. They're the ones that are going to help maybe bring you your first Super Bowl ring, especially if the Chiefs have a down year or if they can dethrone the Chiefs once again. But why are you choosing not to pay your guys? Why? That's what I'm wondering. So they need an all gold and red jersey. I think that would be really cool. I don't know how that would really look. I know there have been some Photoshops and all that from fans, but I'd love to. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Mitch Holthus rocks. Yeah, he's awesome. Him and Paul Allen, some of the best out there for sure. Appreciate it. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it, man. Have I been to Oakland? I mean, no, I've heard bad things about it. I know there's a lot of crime and whatnot that goes there. I'm just, and I know I may have done that kind of thing when I was like much younger, but I just don't. I don't know, man. Like, I'm not in favor of attacking other cities in the country that I live in. That's just my opinion. A lot of us can't afford tickets to that stadium, way overpriced. Yeah, that is for sure. I mean, even uh, the players, like their families, were complaining about how expensive tickets were for that game. It's insane. Chris, you're on a run tonight, Chris, with your comments. I'm not putting a Buffalo comment on the screen, so I may or may not get banned, but that's funny. I like it. Chiefs won back-to-back Super Bowls while having a negative turnover differential. They had the negative turnover differential, and they had the most penalized offensive player. They had the most penalized defensive player. They had the most drops. What more obstacles could you have thrown at Patrick Mahomes this year? And they won. Like, this is what I keep going back to. Okay, I know there are a lot of people out there who are like, oh, the Chiefs will not three-peat because it's never been done before. Okay, you know what has not been done in a long time, in 19 years? Going back to back. You know what has not been done in a very long time? I think 30 plus years? A Super Bowl MVP and a regular season MVP in the same season. The Chiefs are responsible for making that happen again after it had not been done in a very long time. It's a great point, Matthew. Like, that's how much things have changed. Like, the Chiefs, even on a down year, what was 2022? 2022 was a rebuilding year, and 2023 was a down year, and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl both those years. So imagine when they actually get their shit together. JC, or I'm sorry, Jackson. I hope I said your name right. Definitely NHL or whiny baby NBA. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the flopping with NBA. There was a point in time where like a lot of people were shaming soccer for the flopping and very fair criticism. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of that in basketball. I'm not a fan of that at all. I remember in the Olympics, I can't remember who it was. Team USA was going up against somebody. Somebody absolutely flopped, and the referees just let it go, and the fans are booing because they think that there was actual contact. Like, no, you flopped like an idiot. I can't remember the name of the Boston Celtics player who played at Oklahoma State. I remember he was at a KU game once when I was a student at KU. Dude, the flop was just, and I saw it live. I did not even need a replay. I saw it with my own two eyes. I'm like, he freaking flopped. And people saw it on the replay on the video board, and the entire arena erupted when that happened. It's like, man, I hate that shit. I hate that shit. Jackson played in Arrowhead '84. Yeah, see, like that's my point though, because it had been a long time. Arrowhead had events, and I don't know when the last concert was prior to the renovations, but yeah, maybe it was that event. I don't know. I would have to take some time and look it up again. Hope we get to watch the Chiefs play this year and not the Taylor Swift show again. Man, here's my thing. If the Chiefs were not good, this kind of thing would not happen. Do you think Taylor Swift would date Travis Kelce if he was on a 2 or 3 win team? Probably not. I don't know. But can we just be honest here? Like, there are stats out there. She's only shown for like 1% of the game. Like, they show her for a total of a few seconds. They showed her a little bit more in the Miami Dolphins playoff game because that game was boring as hell. I mean, they showed her swag surfing with the rest of the fans. Like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I don't mind that. I don't know. Like, it doesn't bother me. It bothers some people, not me, man. I think the whole Taylor Swift thing's been pretty cool. She's brought a massive fan. Listen, there are very, very, very few people who can do this kind of thing. Taylor Swift, she wore a New Heights hat, and her fans went crazy about it, and they all purchased the same hat. Whatever Chiefs apparel she wore, all of her fans tried to buy, and they sold them out. Whatever she touches turns into gold. I think it was at the Grammys. She came in fashionably late, and I think who was it? Trevor Noah, who was hosting. He made a funny joke. He said, "Oh, look at Taylor as she's walking past all these tables. The economic impact of those tables are going up." It's like, okay, that's kind of funny because it's true. Like that's what she's doing. That's just what she does. There are very, very, very few people who have the impact that she has. I mean, whatever apparel she has, her fans want to buy. I remember like Donald Trump was promoting Goya beans or whatever it was, and his fan base went crazy for that, and they sold that out. How many people would you say today have that kind of impact? I would say like massive YouTubers have that kind of impact because kids love YouTube today, and whoever like their favorite YouTubers, that they'll always try to like dress like them, be like them, wear whatever apparel they have, so they'll always like show out for them. But yeah, there are very few people in this world who can do that kind of thing. So I think it's cool. I don't really have a problem with it. Golden years of wrestling was in the 90s. Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've seen all of the 90s when it comes to wrestling. It feels like right now wrestling is in a way better place. Like there are some people out there comparing it to the Attitude Era. So yeah, the Attitude Era that you're referring to, Dominic. Yeah, those are great years indeed. We lost to Green Bay last year, which we shouldn't have. Yeah, that's a good one, Zach. You're right. Chris, let me ask you a question. Oh, see, I was just going to ask you: have you ever been to Joe's Kansas City? See. See, this is my thing. Like, I know Kansas and Missouri. Like, if you want to have a Kansas versus Missouri fight when it comes to KUM, you're fine. But it's like, we share the same football team. They play. And by the way, I hate this whole, they belong to Missouri. They belong to Kansas. They have a strong fan base from both states. And, they play in Missouri. That's just the fact. Somebody once commented on my page. They were like, "Oh, I'll bet you anything Clark Hunt lives in Missouri." Like, he does not live in Missouri. He lives in Dallas. There are actually a lot of Chiefs players who live in Kansas, which, again, has nothing to do with where they'll play. But, yeah, I mean, see, like, Chris, you do go to Kansas for some things like barbecue, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, listen, I'm in Kansas, and I go to Missouri for some events. Not that I'm not one of those fans that cares where they go exactly, but yeah. Attitude Era save wrestling. Yeah, I believe that. I mean, plus the things you saw like Mike Tyson, DX, The Nation. Like, I mean, that was it, man. Kane, Undertaker, Stone Cold, The Rock. And what a career The Rock had over the years, where he was like hated and then loved and hated again and loved again, like, and now he's hated again. But of course, everyone's going to cheer. It's funny because of The Rock, his angle. They were like booing him and cheering for him on the same night. It was just weird with The Rock. Kansas City Kings, yeah, but yeah, they played in Kemper, and then the Scouts also played in Kemper too. Let's create NFL history for Chiefs haters. I hope so. Did he say that 30%? Feels like it. It feels like more than that. Has Tom Brady called a game yet? Curious how he does. Yes, he's done a couple, Robert. He did. Not that a lot of you guys care about this probably, but whatever the new XFL is called, the USFL, he called that championship game. And he did a preseason game last week, I believe. The Cowboys and the Rams, I think, were the two teams. So he's done a couple. Yeah, the Z-Man sandwich. That's awesome. I've never been to Slaps. I do need to try Slaps. It's funny. I saw a UFC fighter. He went to Slaps Barbecue, and they were telling him how many pounds of meat they had. And he's like, "Oh, that's 2 DCs." For those who don't know, DC stands for Daniel Cormier. He's a much bigger fighter in the UFC, so he made that. So that made me laugh. By the way, this kind of reminds me because of this whole Kansas Missouri thing. It's funny because the UFC was in Kansas City last year. So the UFC has been to Kansas City twice, 2017 and 2023, I think. Yeah. And for whatever, the first time the UFC came here, this didn't happen. But the second time the UFC came here, for those who don't know, after a fighter wins, if they have time, generally, kind of depends on TV restrictions and timing. If they have an opportunity to get on the mic, they'll like thank the fans in the area. So they'll be like, "Hey, thank you Boston," or "Thank you Miami," wherever. For whatever reason, there were several UFC fighters in the T-Mobile Center. They were like, "Oh, thank you Kansas. Thank you Kansas. Kansas, you're great." I'm like, "No, you're going to piss a lot of people off." Which I can understand from an outsider's perspective, which is funny to me because there are a lot of people who think that Chiefs play in Kansas, which makes sense. They think Kansas City, which is why whenever the news got out that the people in Missouri, Jackson County, voted no on the Chiefs and Royals, there were a lot of people confused. They're like, "Wait, the Chiefs are in Missouri? I thought they were in Kansas." So that's that reaction made me laugh. Gates Barbecue sucks. I like their burnt ends. They're good. See, Chris, you're passionate about the Kansas-Missouri border war. You're passionate about the barbecue. You're all over it here. Anyone with a brain knows where Kansas City is. It's in both states. You're trolling, Chris. You have to be trolling on that one right there. Okay, real quickly, before I get out of here, this has actually been a very lively Red Friday Live chat. I appreciate you guys. As far as tomorrow goes, what do I want to see? Xavier Worthy played he played on the first drive, but he played, I think, like one snap on the second offensive drive. I didn't see much from him last week. I need to see something from him this week for two reasons. One, just need to see something from him. And two, not that I was anticipating providing this reason a week ago, but Hollywood Brown is hurt and he's going to miss a little bit of time. So there is a little bit of pressure on a guy like Xavier Worthy to maybe show something in this preseason game, because this is a guy that's going to get more playing time and possibly be one of the starters going into week one. Even more so now because Hollywood Brown may not play that game. We don't know for sure yet, but that is very likely. I'd like to see a little bit more of Rashee Rice as well. I know Mahomes threw a ball at his direction last week. A little bit of a tough grab right there. Rice was unable to bring it in. So I don't know if statistically they consider that a drop. Okay, I can see why, but kind of a tough catch also. So I'd like to see Rice and Worthy get a little more involved. Andy Reid said that the starters would play two quarters, the first half, which I think is going to be two drives. I don't think they're going to play the entire first half. Listen, with what happened with Hollywood Brown, I think the Chiefs are going to try to be a little careful here. If the Chiefs offense has like a 15-play drive on their first drive of the game, I can see them yanking the starters. Like if you get a 15-play drive that ends in a touchdown or a field goal, you do not need to see more from your starting offense. Kingsley Suamataia, he was not challenged much last week. Let's see what he can do. Obviously, would love to see what Carson Steele does again. I'd like to see a little bit more of Jared Wiley. He was kind of quiet last week. Cornell Powell also had kind of a quiet day. Sky Moore, with Hollywood's injury, I'd like to see what Sky Moore can do, because this is someone that's had kind of a quiet camp, has had some moments in camp, but not a whole lot. So let's see what Sky Moore can do. As far as the defensive side of the football goes, I thought Josh Williams had a really rough game, got away with a couple of penalties in that one as well. So I'd like to see Josh Williams maybe step up and have a better game, because I think Josh Williams is better than what he showed in last Saturday's preseason game. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. I'd like to see, Leo Chenal show something, especially for, we know what Drew Tranquill and Nick Bolton bring to the table. But with Willie Gay moving on, I'd like to see a little bit more of Leo Chenal. We saw him get more playing time last year, especially with some of the injuries that occurred on defense with Nick Bolton missing some time. So let's see what Leo Chenal can do in this preseason game and transferring it over to the regular season. I think Jack Cochran and Cole Christensen, both of those guys had a sack last week. And those guys might be very important for the defense because they might be active linebackers in rotation. So I'd like to see them. Jaden Hicks, I thought, was the best defensive player for the Chiefs last week. That dude is a hard-hitting safety. That's what I learned about him last week. Very physical. Let's see what else he can do. And listen, Spags loves to blitz. Jaden Hicks was penalized for that illegal hit on the quarterback, so got to be careful with that. But again, that's what Spags does with this defense. He loves to blitz. The Chiefs ran the nickel and dime package more than any defense in the NFL last season. In fact, the last 2 years. But they were far more successful with it last year than they were the year before. And the Chiefs, they're also a defense that blitz with their defensive backs more than any other team in the NFL. So we saw some of that with Jaden Hicks last week. I'm curious what else he does in this upcoming game. So those are some of the guys on the defensive side. FAU he's been very quiet. I thought he had a good Super Bowl in the limited playing time he had there, where he had a couple of nice run stuffs against Christian McCaffrey. But you're a first-round draft pick. Let's see him have a better game, because even in last year's preseason, we did not see much of FAU. So I'd like to see him have kind of a big game for the upcoming year. Rice has no suspension. Yeah, that's likely not going to be the case. What happened to the Chiefs? Picked up Hunter Renfrow, I think is who you're referring to. I believe he's still available. I don't see the Chiefs reaching out to getting anyone else unless they have another injury, or if the Hollywood injury ends up being longer than expected, which does not seem to be the case. I hope the starters are pulled sooner than 2 quarters. No more preseason injuries. Yeah, no way they're playing into the second half. I hope they're not playing up to halftime. I hope they can, pull them out sooner. Because, listen, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce. We don't need to see much of those guys in general, do we? I think they need to play and kind of get into a rhythm. I don't need to see much of it. What I saw from them in 6 plays last week, good enough for me. Like, it looked good. Now, this week I can understand being a little bit more important, because you kind of have to plan for how you're going to look without Hollywood Brown for 1, maybe 2, possibly 3 games. We don't know exactly that yet. So maybe this preseason has a little bit of importance on the offensive side, so you can try to showcase what you can try to do without Hollywood for however long that might be. All right, guys. Hey, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys. Reminder, tomorrow we will have the pregame live chat an hour before kickoff. So 2 p.m. Central Time. Come right back here on Facebook and YouTube. We will talk about the game, answer some more of your guys' questions, just chat it up for a little bit. And then halftime, we will recap the first half live on Facebook and YouTube. And then after the game, we will do the Chiefs Zone podcast live on Facebook and YouTube. And we'll be taking your calls after the game as well, so you guys can call into the podcast and share your thoughts. If you haven't done so already, please listen to Wednesday's podcast. Not a very newsworthy podcast, but still some notable things we got into. And then Thursday's podcast, Brody Croyle was my guest. Really fun conversation with Brody Croyle. So if you haven't had a chance to listen, please check it out. Would love to have you guys comment on that, listen to it. We'll have some clips coming out in the coming days for that as well, if you missed any part of it. So very great conversation with Brody Croyle, get his perspective on things that went wrong and the struggles he had in Kansas City. Really good stuff from Brody. So I had a lot of fun talking to him. Check it out if you haven't done so already. Okay, guys, I'm out of here. My name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you again for joining me for this episode of the Red Friday Live Chat. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Game day.